Hey, so a lot of people in WoW have really fucking terrible UIs. And usually the further back you go in terms of expansions, the worse it gets. So on TBC servers, a lot of people have really fucking terrible UIs. So you see some examples here. Those are just random screenshots from actual 2018 people playing TBC. So most of them are just super basic, but some of them are just extremely fucking messy. Like, I don't know, what the fuck is this even? Like, for real. And the thing is, you can actually have good looking UIs in TBC. TBC add-ons are old and broken and messy, but still, like, it is possible to have actually not awful UIs in TBC. So here are some examples for that. So I want to show people how to not have terrible UIs. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start showing super basic, super low effort stuff. And then towards the end, it'll get more and more advanced, more effort. So if you're lazy, you don't have to watch the whole thing. Just, take the bit at the start and then just stop whenever you want. So your eye might look something like this. And this is something I threw together in just a few minutes to make it look as awful as possible. First thing you want to do is you want to actually fix your in-game settings and play on an actual resolution from 2018, not from 2006. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to enable UI scale and set that slider all the way to the left. And now you can actually see shit. Next, if you're literally the most lazy person possible and want to put in zero effort, you can get something called ElvUI. ElvUI is basically an all-in-one package. It became like really popular around Mists of Pandaria and has been backported to like all older expansions. And you literally just install it like any other add-on. I'll have a link to it in the description below. And it basically is an UI overall. It has action bars, unit frames, everything. Okay, so now you see it actually looks like something one can play with. And you have like this introduction thing where you can kind of just click your way through and you can choose different color schemes and shit, whatever you like. And there are different profiles. There's healer, there's tank stuff. It's fairly self-explanatory, super simple. And you can change the settings after if you want to as well. So here, ElvUI, you have all these things. You can toggle anchors. You can move everything around. You have this nice grid to perfectly line it up, all built in. You can set keybinds somewhere here and stuff, etc. Super basic. Literally zero effort. If you're not gonna put in any work, do at least this, because this already looks like a billion times better than the shit I showed at the start, objectively. Okay, back to this mess. If you don't want to just use ElvUI and work on UI yourself, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. It's still super low effort. For one thing you can do, which is so basic and makes such a difference, is to actually like put things in places where it makes sense and like line them up properly. For example, a lot of people have recount just somewhere here. Why don't you just actually like put it into a corner, size it in a way where you can actually like read it, where this doesn't overlap, and then actually I'm gonna disable these bars because they're pointless. Okay, so you just put this nice actually in the corner, not just somewhere here or here, but actually in the corner of your screen, right? And if you go into the settings, you can change a lot of stuff in here. For example, you can change the scale, how big it is. You can change how big the different rows are. Let me attack something so I get something into that window. So you can make these higher, bigger, or smaller, whatever you fucking want. You can change the fonts. There are a bunch of different fonts you have available here. You can change the texture and stuff. You can change the color of this header. You can set it to black. You can set it to whatever the hell you want, blue if you like that. Or you can just make it transparent. That's what I like to do. I just like to have my recount completely transparent, like this. And there's a lot you can do with this. For example, if you look again at a picture of my other UIs, you can see that I have it set it up like transparent and stuff, and it looks a lot nicer. Whatever you want, however you like it. And then something you should do is when you set it up in a way you like it, is you should enable lock window so you can move it around. And these little mover things at the bottom, these go away, because they're only there for configuration. and you should turn them off once you're done configuring the thing. And there's other settings you can do here as well. For example, you can show total bar, which just can be nice if you want to. You can make this thing only track bosses, for example, so that it only keeps boss segments. Another thing you can do actually is if you go here, interface, add-ons, recount, you can make it save more fights. So here normally you only have like, the last 5. You can set it up all the way to 25. The same thing you can do with Omen. So you can make it bigger or whatever the fuck you want. You can configure it. You can lock it so this thing goes away. Again, same thing. You can, for example, make this header thing transparent because it's pointless. You can disable the border as well. You can hide it entirely. You can generally, that's generally something you can do, is you just change the default textures because they're awful. Or make them more transparent. Make the background transparent. Etc, etc, etc. Can hide this one as well if you want to, or again, at least change this. That's the wrong one. There you go. And play like that. You can set, again, you can set the textures for the actual bars and set the scale, etc. Just play around with it, and it can look a lot better. Like, again, if you compare against the other screenshots from earlier, it's the exact same thing, except I spent like 10 minutes looking through the settings, tweaking it a bit till it looked nice. And you can like take this, make it line up with recount. There you go. And then lock. Let's move these away again. These are super unimportant, so I usually just throw them up here. There's the other one. Just throw them up here. And another thing you can do with Bartender is you can make things to be mouse over or fade out, which means that they're fade out unless you mouse over them. So if you mouse over, that's where they are. If you don't, they're not visible. Why would you do that? Because why the hell would you have them displayed? It's just useless clutter spamming your screen that you don't need. And you can also disable extra action bars you're not using, for example. Let me actually lock it again. There you go. So another thing I would really recommend you doing, if your unit frames are up here, move them. For real. Move them. This is an awful place for unit frames to be. You want to have them center so you can actually see them. So, move them to the middle of your screen. Or somewhere more central, but not have them up there. It is pointless, terrible, looks bad, and is just legit limiting you to play because you can't look at your screen and look at your health or your target's health. You want to have stuff central. And also, you can change stuff like textures here. So for example, if you, maybe this one changes the textures on the bars. Or this one, whatever the hell you want. And you can change the colors as well, like you can make the borders transparent, you can make the background a less ugly color or make it more transparent or whatever, or make it completely black. This one, yeah, okay, this is how you, etc. There's a bunch of stuff you can do just clicking through the settings. However, if you actually want to put an effort into your unit frames, I would recommend not using xperl in the first place. I would recommend using something called Pitbull, which is a add-on that requires a lot more configuration to not look completely terrible, but overall looks better and gives you more options. But if you say I'm too lazy to gonna do it, I'm gonna stick with xperl, you can at least do some minor stuff to make it look a bit nicer if you care. So let's get to another add-on. This one, probably a lot of you have elkanos buff bars. I generally would recommend using a different add-on called satrinas buff frames, but if you want to stick with this one, for one, right click here and you can bar layout, bar texture, you can change the texture to something, you can change the color again to, that should change the color of the top, great. Anyways, and you can move it around, and then this thing actually is the mover thing. So if you disable this show anchor, you can't move it around anymore, and the thing is gone. You know, because again, take add-ons out of config mode, and now you can't right-click it anymore. You have to go on the minimap thing, right-click, and then if you go to group settings, enable it again, get to the settings here. There's a bunch of stuff you can do with it. It's pretty annoying to set up because of this menu just being generally terrible. But yeah, if you want to stick with it, you can, you know, at least maybe change the texture and put it out of config mode. Okay, so apparently my resolution didn't update when I changed it at the start until I relocked. So oops, I can't be bothered to redo all the previous segments. Anyways, next add-on, MSBT. A lot of people use this one, and again, /MSBT opens the configs. You can go here and then you can move these around. So, for example, they don't overlap your unit frames wherever you want them. And then one thing, really, please go to master font, change the font to anything but default, because this Comic Sans font makes me angry. So, like, I don't know, Transformers looks cool, Frizz looks okay, this one, whatever the hell you want, I don't care, just not the default one, please. Okay, so now, if you go attack something, you actually have fonts that don't look absolutely fucking terrible for this stuff. Next, another add-on, you can get Button Facade. Very simple. All it does is if you go to add-ons, Button Facade, you can select just, it doesn't come with much, but it doesn't need much. You can select these different look profiles and, you know, it just looks better. So zero effort, makes your eye look a lot cleaner and nicer. Next, another add-on, Magnon, probably a lot of you use, puts your entire back in one thing. You can configure this one as well. Right click top, and then you can change the background color. You can make it black, you can make it completely transparent, you can make it less transparent, whatever. Change it from the default ugly green. You can make it, change its shape like this, make it bigger, smaller. You can reduce the spacing in between buttons. You know, super simple stuff. But yeah. Okay, let's get into some extra add-on recommendations that I would have. So for one, there's an add-on called Add-on Control Panel, which adds this nice little button, which allows you to enable and disable add-ons without having to relock every time. So for example, let's enable Sexy Map, and then hit Reload UI, and now it loaded a new add-on that you would have normally had to lock out. And Sexy Map changes your minimap. You just can do /Sexy Map, and then you can change the preset here to whatever you want, whatever you like. And yeah, that's all that one does, really. Another nice one is xLoot, which changes the loot window. So you see, loot window looks different, looks nicer in my opinion. There's a link all option, which can be useful for bosses, I guess. You can also right click and then again change the appearance, change colors and stuff if you care. Whatever. Another nice little add-on is called Align/Align. All it does is it draws this grid. You probably saw something similar earlier in ElvUI, which sort of has this built in. And basically you can use this to line up things in your eye to be perfectly positioned, to be straight, to be exactly parallel, same distance, whatever. I'm not going to bother doing it now, but you know, if you actually line up your things properly, this is very useful. Another sort of neat add-on that I personally like a lot is called Eavesdrops, which a lot of people don't know about. Basically, it adds this window, and what this window does is it's sort of a slightly more permanent combat log. So you can see what you'd hit, what you got hit by, exact timestamps and stuff. It's very, very nice for tanks, because you can see exactly the sequence of hits that, you know, healed you, for example. Because, you know, it stops at death. So you can see, okay, I got healed from this person at that timestamp, and then I got hit for this, and then I dodged and stuff. So it's very useful and just nice information, especially for tanks. And you can configure this as well, obviously. You can change the colors, you can change the frame, you can change the text. You can lock the frame to, you know, make it not be able to move around. You can hide the tab to make this part go away. You can make it fade away as well, etc. Again, play around with the configs. You'll figure it out. Another cool add-on is called Shared Media. All this does is it adds more fonts and more textures to other add-ons. So if you remember at the start, you had very few here, now you have a lot more to choose from. And the same goes for most other add-ons. So here you see there's a lot more textures as well, and fonts as well, and stuff. And yeah, that just allows you to customize things a bit more. Maybe you don't like the default fonts, and then you can change them. Next, add-on called class timer / class timer. This allows you to track certain things. It gives you these bars. They're kind of all stacked in the same place, so you have to move them at the start when you first install it. And again, you can configure everything. You configure the size and everything of the things. So for example, let's just make them bigger for now. And this basically tracks certain class-specific buffs, debuffs, and stuff. So for example, I can make it track these things. I can disable them as well if I don't want them to be tracked. So if I do Blood Rage, you see Blood Rage, Shout, see the Shout. And the same goes for debuffs on targets. So for example, if we pull this mob and we apply bleeding, you have the bleeding, thunder armor, you have thunder armor, etc. Another add-on, Aloft. This is a nameplate add-on. Nameplate add-ons in TBC are really shitty because nameplates in TBC are really shitty. This is the only one I know about, and it is still pretty but it's something. I wouldn't recommend this unless you really want nicer nameplates. And you can open the config by doing /aloft waterfall, which opens this GUI, and then there's like a billion settings here that you can go through, where you can change the texture of the health bar. You can change the background. It constantly goes out of range. You can change how high it is, etc., etc., how wide. It's a pain in the ass, really, to go through this and configure it the way you want. But if you have the patience to do it, you can get some pretty cool nameplates out of it. But again, be warned, this one kind of sucks, but it's the only way I know of in TBC to get nice looking nameplates, if that's something you care about. Another add-on that's actually pretty important is Grid. Grid is by far the most advanced rate frame add-on in TBC. However, it looks like absolute shite when you first install it. So you can do a lot of things to make it not as shit. You can make it bigger, for example. And especially this border is really ugly, and you can make that complete. You can make that just go, like make the outer border go away, or you can also just have it completely go away. You can also configure the size of the frame itself here if you want to have them a bit bigger. Frame width there. Again, you can change textures, you can change fonts, however you like. This is a lot more important when you're a healer. When you're a tank or DPS, it's really not too important, but generally you should still have some form of rate frames in your eyes, so you don't stand there and like, why am I not getting any healing? It's because the other 20 people are dead. Have that happen a lot, where you have someone ask, what's up? Why are we wiping? Because, everyone's dead, but they didn't see because they don't have rate frames. So have rate frames. Even if they're just small in the corner, you should have them at least. And another thing I'd recommend is getting an additional add-on called Grid Status Rate Debuffs. What this does is it adds this thing under status, where you can configure different debuffs that are boss-specific debuffs that are done in raids. So, for example, in Sunwell, you can track the fire blooms on Kil'jaeden or the flame darts, and you can like toggle on and off which one's supposed to be tracking. For example, I would recommend turning off flame darts because it just spam on the entire raid, and it's useless. Same with Arcane Buffet on Caligos, which is somewhere in here as well. And in order to actually have it be displayed, you have to go to center icon and enable, where is it? Rate debuff. There you go. And now, can't show it right now, but if I would go on a raid and I would get one of the debuffs in that list, I could see it on the person, which can be, especially as a healer, be very, very useful. So I think that's enough for now. As you can see, now this UI looks somewhat acceptable, especially if you compare it to the start of this video. This is like playable and doesn't look like complete garbage. And considering I threw this together in like 20 minutes-ish total of actual effort, yeah, it's really not too much to ask. Put some effort into UI. And last, to show off my actual UI, looks like this. So again, it's mostly the same add-ons. I do use satrina buff frames instead of elkanos buff bars for the buffs, and I do use Pitbull instead of xperl for my unit frames, and the tooltip add-on is called cowtip. These are all, again, get them if you want to, search through the settings. They're kind of annoying to set up, especially Pitbull takes time. But generally, you know, same things, same add-ons, go through the settings, make things line up, remove useless things or make them invisible, and just play with the fonts, play with the textures, and there you go.